All right, let's wait for the general population to show up tonight, as we always do for this channel, for this somewhat weekly show here we got running. Just waiting for the general population to come on in. All right. Hey, what's up, Alex? What's going on, man? Welcome. Welcome. Today is all about mixing. Just waiting for everybody else to show up, and then we'll get started, man. It's good to see you. All right, we're up to 3. There we go. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this going live at the same time as Instagram. Yeah, I think I'm gonna hook that up right now, and then that way it gets the word out. More people know about live streaming and stuff like that. How's everybody doing? Let me know down in the chat. It's good to see everybody tonight. As always, every Friday night. We're starting an hour later because I just took my fiance to get her oil changed, and we went out, had some dinner together, a little date night, and then but we're here, we're doing it. So again, it's good to see everybody. All right, I'm going live on Instagram as well. We're gonna let's see. All right, if I could prop up my phone. All right, getting ready for the day job. What's your day job? What time is it here? It is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here, just outside of Philadelphia. That is where I'm currently located. So I'm having the YouTube stream as well as the Instagram stream going at the same time. So today's just going to be like a crash course and my mixing approach. Hello from Toronto. What's up, Bobby? Good to see you, man. Guys, we're doing a crash course in mixing. So I'm just going to start with my general philosophy on basically how I mix my stuff. And if anybody has any questions at any time with mixing and hey, what's up, Nick? If anybody has any questions with mixing and with mastering, whatever my approach, just feel free to answer them, or leave them down below in the chat, and we'll get to them. All right. So I'm all self-taught. I didn't have any single professional instruction or anything from the beginning of my mixing and writing career until now. Basically, I was all self-taught for 2 years, man. It was just a constant grind of like trying to figure shit out on my own. And, I didn't have anybody teaching me. It was very, very frustrating, and I hated it. The fact that I had, no professional guidance or any amateur guidance. So, I'm hoping that I can at least have some sort of benefit to other people that I'm reaching out on these platforms, and just have some sort of like, just very bare bones way to start and way to, start from point A and get to point B, wherever that is, and what you want to create. Right. So the biggest thing that I always had a problem with is I always wanted the guitar to stand out in the mix. Right. The guitar is, what's going on, everybody? I wanted the guitar to be the forefront of every single song and every single project, man. And that was like the first thing that I gravitated towards, and the first thing that I realized was absolutely killing my mix. My mixing was really bad, and up until recently is when I'm actually like proud of how my things sound. I would make everything all about the guitars, push the guitars as hard as possible. And then I would just absolutely crush the drums and bury the drums and the bass, and nothing would stand out, man. What's going on, guys? Guys, I'm just doing this stream here. Everything, I'm going to be answering all questions on YouTube. If you want to tune in there, I'm just doing a little preview here on Instagram, and then we'll go from there. But I'm just letting people know that, hey, I'm doing all this live streaming on YouTube. So back to what I was saying. It was just like, I'm going to end this real quick. All right, that was just distracting. It wasn't working. So when I was mixing on my own and I was creating, the first thing again I always do is just put the guitars in front, and I would, oh man, it was so bad. Like my old stuff, like when I was doing covers with the original tracks underneath, like my guitars were just so loud and you couldn't hear anything else. And that's, a huge common thing that I've seen when I'm collabing with people, or when I'm just work with other people. It's like everybody wants their stuff to be louder, and I think that's just nature of the beast, right? I mean, you want to pull your own weight, but I think I have a much better grasp of this, but people certainly lose sight of this, I think. And I don't mean to talk negatively about anybody. I think it's just our nature as people that create, man. You want your shit to stand out. And when I've worked with other people, like 99% of the time, people that I work with, they're not happy when somebody else is mixing their stuff. The only exceptions to those rules are Nikki Tedesco is amazing to work with. She was on Left Behind, the Left Behind cover, and Rufus Mann, the other bass player. Oh no, Nikki was on Me Inside. Rufus was on Left Behind. The two bass players, man, they just like said, "Hey, here's my DIs. Do what you want." And when I showed them, they were absolutely just happy to be working with somebody, and that was great. And other than that, like, no offense to anybody. I'm really not talking bad about anybody. Those are just the two people that stand out. Everybody's not happy with their what's being done to their stuff when they're not mixing it themselves. You know what I mean? And I have never. I don't want to sound like better than anybody, but I think it's rude when somebody else is mixing, what you created. Like if I send a guitar GI and somebody wants to do whatever they want to it, and they send it back to me, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything about their work because it's what they created and what they did with what I handed them. I think it's rude to nitpick things that people do to their own creations. Now, if they ask for opinions, you can certainly give them, but like when they say, "Hey, here's what I created. What do you think of it?" Or "Here's what I created. Hope you like it." Nitpicking and saying, "I don't like what you did with what I gave you," I think it's bad business, and it's better to just take the high road when somebody else is mixing your stuff. And I'm not really into that. Trying to be negative or critical to somebody else's creations. So when I was collabing with other people and when I was just doing my own stuff, guitars were just stupid loud, and there was no EQ, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing, and nobody taught me, right? So then another problem I had after another thing that I saw myself doing really, really bad was, it was just like I wasn't using buses and I wasn't using enough compression. For people who don't know, guys, by the way, I'm keeping an eye on all the chats, and I'm not not neglecting you guys. I'm just doing a little introduction here, and just I'm hitting all the things that like I did wrong in the beginning of my mixing, and then I'll go back and answer questions. And you are certainly more than willing and more than capable of asking a question in the chat. And I certainly will get to them here later on in the stream. I'm just going through the flow, the timeline of my mixing career. You know what I mean? So don't feel any type of way if I'm not getting to your questions right away. Leave them all there. I promise you I'll get them all answered. I swear. I promise. All right. So for those of you who don't know, a bus is basically a summoning of data, a summoning of a bunch of tracks into one central spot, and then you can adjust all parameters of all those tracks on the bus. It's like if I had a bunch of little streams, right, a bunch of little waterways all coming together into one big river, and then you just manipulate that river, and then it all trickles back down into those streams. That's the best way I could describe it. You know what I mean? So when I was mixing the very beginning, I would just have like guitar tracks, bass track, drums, and that was it. No busing. And it was just like there's just peaks and valleys all over the place, and it was very inconsistent. And so like you know, the bussing was just like something that I didn't tackle until about, you know, almost a year into mixing, because I didn't know, you know, I didn't know any better. I just was just too focused on the creation of the guitar, again, focusing solely on the guitar and not focusing on the track as a whole. You know what I mean? So then one final thing that I was doing incorrectly, and then I'll answer some questions and then bounce ideas off you guys, whatever, is I was limiting the master fader, and I was doing the mastering at the same time as the mixing. What I mean by that is, when I do a project, guys, I mix it all first, right? And then I bounce that project as a WAV file, or as a WAV file, and then I click and drag that WAV file, that brand new, you know, project, into another Logic project. You know, click and drag the file in, and then I master it, you know, using Ozone 8, which is you know, mastering for dummies 101. Yeah, I would on the master fader, on the stereo out, whatever you want to call it, I would do my limiting there, and then I wouldn't master it. You know, that would just be it. So I was just boosting the signal of the stereo out. So basically, it wasn't clipping because it was a limiter, but like I'd have the threshold at 0.01, barely at 0, but then I would just like raise the dB and the gain up like 6 dB, and like it was just like making everything distorted, and it didn't sound right. The idea was there, and yes, you want to master and you want to make your stuff louder, right? But there's certain stages of when you do all this stuff, and I found that out, again, all by myself and just through trial and error. You know, there wasn't very many tutorials that I found that I learned from. It was all just like, man, let me just try this. All right, that didn't work. Let me try that. That didn't, you know. So that's just like the 3 big things that I was doing wrong. And so now I'm in a position where, you know, I'm certainly all self-taught, and I don't, you know, think I'm done learning, but I'm certainly at a spot where I feel comfortable knowing, you know, what I'm talking about and what I think is the proper way to mix things. And, you know, I'm certainly now in a position where I think I can help people. You know what I mean? So I'm going to turn to the chat real quick. I'm going to answer a few questions, and then we'll get back to, you know, my thoughts and, you know, some advice on mixing, because I certainly have some tips and tricks that I learned along the way I'd love to share with you guys. All right. All right. Working at a music venue over in San Francisco? Question. Hello, I'm brand new to all of this shit, so just whatever you're willing to share. All right. Same here. I only had guitars with no one going to buy. But all right, Andrew. Yes, brand new to all this stuff. Yes, everybody at one point is brand new to all this stuff, and it's very overwhelming and confusing. So if you have any specific questions, please ask me, because I'd much rather be able to answer it for you as opposed to somebody. They could answer it, but, you know, you also run the risk of asking a stranger or watching a stranger's video and not knowing their credibility. You know what I mean? So, yeah, if you have a question, just let me know. My fiance is coming home. She's coming home from the dealership. That's what that noise is in the background. So I have to say hello real quick. Hi, babe. Everything all right? Sorry. Oh boy.
I go there and it was $150.
I hope she doesn't curse.
Yeah, no.
Oh boy. All right. So you want to come on the internet?
Oh.
Come on up.
I'm not being on that.
All right. She won't come on. Come on up.
No.
All right.
I'm going back out.
Okay. One day I'll get her on.
I can't discuss my issues.
All right.
That's why you weren't answering the phone.
Yeah, my phone's not with me. It's over here on the wall. Sorry. All right, we're back. All right, so what was I talking about? All right, back to the chat. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please, I'm more than willing to give my 2 cents and be able to, you know, give you some real life experience from somebody who at some point was brand new to all this. The collabs are awesome, man. How do you link up with people to jam with? All right, good question. I reach out. I've just like if I want to do a band cover. Like what I'll do is I'll type in like the band's name and then I'll put like bass cover. You know what I mean? Like if I'm looking for a bass player, that's how I found Nikki. Funny enough, I found her collab like 2 years ago, trying to learn Vermilion, and then like cut to like 2 years later, then we did our own collab. It was just funny like that. You know what I mean? So I reach out, I just put feelers out there, take a shot in the dark, and you know, see if they want to do it. Leanna, you gonna come on? I know you're there. She's being shy. Leanna. Anyway, so all right, so one thing I'll give one piece of advice that I took about a year and a half to get to grasp, and that was let the instruments do their job. And what I mean by that is like, you can't have the guitar be overbearing, you can't have the bass be overbearing, you can't have the drums be overbearing, you can't have the vocals be overbearing. Everything has their position sonically, and as well as like gain staging, which is a whole nother tutorial. But again, going back to it, since being a guitar player, I'm extremely biased. I wanted my guitars to be the forefront of every single song that I did, right? But funny enough, the guitar as an instrument itself is a mid-range instrument, and it is probably the least important instrument of an entire song. And that is like, you know, a huge shot to, you know, huge kick in the teeth as somebody who plays one, right? But, you know, when you think about like, you know, guitar you want a huge low end and it's super heavy and, you know, you want it to sound, you know, incredible, right? But, you know, long story short, man, the bass does 99% of that work. You know, that space sonically is all handled by the bass. It has nothing to do with, you know, a guitar. A guitar only has like a 52, 56 gauge string. You know, it's not going to be able to handle an octave below what you're playing. You know what I mean? Like if I'm in drop B, a bass is playing an entire octave below my lowest B. You know what I mean? So like trying to EQ and trying to like make something sound heavy with little dainty strings at a certain octave, it's not going to work, man. It's just going to turn the mud into flub and it's not going to sound crisp, clean, and tight. So, you know, as a guitar player, man, you're like solely focused in like the 100 hertz to 12K, man. But realistically, 100 hertz, 150 hertz to like 2K. Like that's just like, that's your bread and butter right there, man. You have no business really being anywhere lower than 100 hertz, and you have no business really being anywhere higher than, you know, 8K. I mean, yes, you're going to have some natural, you know, harmonics in weight, you know, and frequencies in that register, but like your bread and butter as guitar players between like, I'd say like 150 to like 5 to 8K, you know what I mean? Somewhere like that. And then same with like the drums, man. I use MIDI drums 99% of the time. I have used live drums, but like I've said this before, man, the snare and the kick are your bread and butter as you know, having a solid drum track or, you know, drum sound, right? So, you know, you got to find the space for them to fit in the song. So the kick drum obviously is the low end, you know, drum of the drum kick. So, you know, that again, that lives in like the 60 to 150 range, really, like the majority of the beef of the kick drum. So you got to be careful and you got to be mindful of that. And then the snare, which I think is more important than the kick, that lives like anywhere between like 250 and like 600 hertz, give or take. You know, that's a very, very generic answer to that. But again, you have to be mindful of all of these frequencies trying to poke through the ceiling. And you can't just have your guitar be the main focus of a lot because it's just going to drone everything out. So, you know, you got to find your space sonically, you know, not only in a surround sound 360, but also just like the level of your instruments, man. And so what I mean by like find your space in like a stereo 360 setting. Yeah, obviously you pan your guitars left and right, and bass and drums are right down the middle. But if you're doing like individual drum tracks, for example, like if you're doing an individual like hi-hat, snare, kick, you know, etc., you do have to pan them a little bit left and right just to make them stand out a little bit more. If you have guitars, bass, vocals, drums, everything straight down the middle, nothing's going to come through and nothing's going to have a huge surround sound sonics, and they're not going to find their sonic space. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I struggled forever with was not necessarily the surround sound effect, but just like the overall like gain, staging, and loudness of each instrument, and where to cut and boost certain frequencies, in EQ. So if you guys have any questions about EQing any instruments, please ask them right now. Like I'd love to give you my advice on how I EQ things, right? All right, so I'm gonna turn it to the chat real quick. Do I record a stem in stereo or mono? Always in mono. I used to so there's a lot of I use plugins quite frequently nowadays. And I never use a plugin option where it like turns your mono signal into stereo. And it just, I don't know, if I'm like recording in mono, I like to stay in mono. And I don't arm like 2 tracks like at once. Like my Axe Effects has 2 XLR outputs. I never have them running at the same time. I never arm 2 tracks at the same time. I always just do one at a time, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just how I do things. And I never record a mono track into stereo, and I never record in stereo ever. Just straight mono all the time. But I do quad track my projects about 80 to 90% of the time. So that in turn just creates a bigger effect. I'll mention it. Not many people, I think many people know this, but if you don't, if you do one take of a track, and then if I were to copy and paste that, pan one right, pan one left, you're just going to have one single mono track right down the middle. It's the little nuances of separate tracks that creates that widening, that huge stereo sound, because humans, as a species aren't perfect. We're not robots. We're not like, MIDI instruments where we're going to be perfect every time. We make mistakes, and we're not 100% accurate, with the grid and with the click. And you could play it as precise as you want, but it's still going to sound slightly different every single time. You play it a million times in a row, you're never going to play it the same way twice. It's just the nature of the beast. And you can use that to your advantage, and you can make your stuff sound absolutely monstrous, especially with guitars, by doing quad tracks or even like 6 tracks. Sometimes I've done 6-track projects, like Bleed, the most popular video on this channel. It's got like close to 217,000 views, which is amazing. At this very moment in time, that was 6 tracks, 6 guitar tracks. And I really didn't know what I was doing with mixing and stuff like that at the time, but I'm pretty proud of that project. And I think the guitars sound awesome in that project because I had 6 tracks. I spent like 5 months on that project, and I had 6 tracks panned, in different, surround spots, in the actual song. And so you just got to experiment with it. But I never really just have like one left and one right. I never have 2 tracks. I really almost always have 4 tracks. And it's just like my style and like what I like to do. Plus it's fun just playing stuff like, 4 times. It's like, it just sounds better to me. It's more fun. I just enjoy it. So that's what I do. Is there anything wrong with just recording with your phone? I'm not big into the whole DI and mic crap. Is there anything wrong with it? Like, so like I'm pretty naive. Is there like DAWs for phones, or are you just talking about like your video recording and playing like, and just using your phone's microphone? I'm not familiar if there's DAWs for your phone. If there is, that's pretty crazy, but I don't think so. Like maybe GarageBand. But I think what you're asking is like, is it cool like to not worry about that whole thing? And yeah, like that's what I wanted to do originally, very, very beginning, not just thinking about this channel, like what would I want to do? Like, and I don't know, like I didn't want to do that. There's nothing wrong with it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But for me, if you're going to do something, why not go 100%? This is just my personal belief. You're not going to gain a lot of traction and notoriety with just iPhone videos, just with iPhone microphone recordings. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, you have to realize with YouTube, nobody's going to really want to watch, poor quality audio and video. It's about giving something to the consumer, and it's all about production value. You know what I mean? Like if if a movie was shooting with just an iPhone and it had poor audio and video quality, nobody would watch it, right? It's just like, again, it's just nature of the business. So to answer your question, there's nothing wrong with it, but I think you should always try to give the best performance and put out your best work at all times and not settle just because for convenience's sake. That's just my 2 cents on that. So hope that answers your question. All right. Basically, I don't know how to EQ properly somehow when I'm done tracking guitars. Shit sounds almost fizzy. Also dropping solos into shit. It's almost like it doesn't mix together right. Okay. I can give some advice on that, Andrew. So EQing guitars. Okay. Basically it's not as hard, and it's not like this huge, like, you need like a master's degree in audio, engineering and sound recording technology to get it. It's pretty easy, and less is more at the end of the day. So for the low end, I always just cut literally anything from 100 hertz and below, like completely out. On the amp, all right, I'm jumping all over the place. On the amp, I have pretty much just a slight boost. Everything's like, let's say everything's at 5, right? Everything's at noon. A slight boost in the bass, a slight cut in the mids, and a slight boost in the treble and presence. Like, no, there's nothing drastic on the actual amp sim or actual amp, when I'm recording with an amp, which is not that frequent anymore. I'm using a lot of software and XFX, etc. But even still, it's just like I keep everything pretty minimalistic, just because you can always cut and add things later. So with the source, I just try to keep it very, very, minimal for changes. But with EQing, like again on the bus, sending everything to a bus or a track stack, everything from 100 hertz and below absolutely goes away immediately. It's like the first thing I do. It gets rid of all the mud and all the nasty stuff. And then a high cut, cut off all the high end. Anything from 12K and up goes immediately. That lets the cymbals breathe, the hi-hat breathe, and that could help out with the fizzy stuff. Then if you want to get a little bit like specific with certain frequencies, the 2 to 5K range can get that like harsh brittle sound, that like really like sound. It's the best way I can describe it. So like I do like a really short, skinny parameter, and like I do like an aggressive cut at about like 3 to 5K. That's like when I really cut that out, and that gets rid of that like really harsh, brittle, fizzy, like scrapey sound, like almost like a pick slide, like that to me sounds like 5K, like a pick slide. I get rid of that. And then there's really not much else I do. Slight dip in the mids, like around like 300 to 500 hertz, just to give it that more like scooped metal sound. But that's just all preference. And then a little boost at like 150, 200 hertz, just for a little more low end. And then a very wide parameter at about 1 to 2K, just like a very flat, long boost between 1 and 2K. Because again, the guitar is a mid-range instrument. I have certain tutorials on my channel about this, mixing metal guitars in 3 easy steps. I go over this stuff. But that's pretty much it, man. Just like the amp sims, I don't mess with, or like the actual amps, I don't mess with the parameters too much, because again, you can always cut and boost later. It's better to have the source pretty neutral, in my opinion, as opposed to like having it drastic from the start and then like trying to like add artificial stuff that isn't really there later. That can be a bit of a bitch to do. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any more questions, let me know. Hi from Sweden. All right, right on, man. What's up from the USA? Are you ever looking to collab with some of us? I'm down for collabs. Yes, guys. Best way to get me for collabs and for projects is on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM. Stay metal ready. No space, no caps. I'm always down for work, man. If you got a platform, or if you want to collab with me, I can scream and I can play guitar, and I guess I can play bass, and I can mix some stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to do a project, let me know. I'm down. I'm really always down, guys. All right. I'll answer one more question for the time being, and then I have another topic I'd love to discuss with you guys. All right, who makes the best guitars in your opinion? Personally, nothing beats my Strats, but that's just me. Uh, yeah, probably Gibson or Fender. Just again, I'm a dad at heart, man. I don't think anybody makes better guitars than the OG Fender and Gibson. That's just my personal opinion. I'm gonna answer one more question. I've been arming one track at a time. I was wondering if that's how other people do it. That's how I do it, yeah. All right. All right, so next thing I would like to talk about with guitars again is multiband compression. In metal, there's a huge low end in metal. And again, the bass does all of that, like a guitar is not a mid-range, or excuse me, it's not a low-end range instrument. It handles the mid-range and a little bit of the high end. That's what the guitar is built to do. And so this is like the final thing that like I grasped before I fully like kind of got how to mix a guitar and guitar, an overall guitar sound in a guitar project. And that's multiband compression. What multiband compression is, if you guys don't know, it's setting certain parameters in a plugin to where it compresses and it alters a certain frequency range. And what I found out, I learned this from Hardcore Mixing Studio, Hardcore Music Studio YouTube channel. Jordan is the gentleman that runs that. Very cool channel. It has about like 20K subs. Very, very awesome. Check them out. But yeah, he explained this in one of his videos, and so I'm certainly, giving credit where credit is due. What multiband compression does is you solely focus on the low end of the guitars, and especially it works really well when you're doing chugs and palm mutes. Palm mutes live between like very roughly generic, like 90 hertz and 400 hertz, give or take. And when you're doing heavy chugs, and even when you're just playing like a regular riff, it can get really muddy really, really fast. And when you don't have multiband compression, it doesn't clamp down on that low end, and it doesn't tame it. It makes your guitar overstep its boundaries and step into the frequency range of the bass and the kick drum and even the snare. And it's best to just like tame that and just have your guitar again just solely be focused on the mid range of the song. And so I use the C4 plugin by Waves, and I bypass 3 out of the 4 different frequency ranges, the different parameters, and I just solely have that plugin working on like 92 to 400 hertz. And I have it set pretty aggressively to where anytime, the gain of the guitar bus oversteps that boundary, oversteps the threshold, it clamps down on it pretty hard. And it really, really was eye-opening for me and groundbreaking for my mixing, because it allowed me to obtain a clean, crisp, clear overall mix because my guitars weren't overstepping their boundaries. Again, I quad track all my stuff, so guitars are the busiest and the most like they crowd the overall project the most, because I just have four guitar tracks that's what's taking up all the energy of the track, right? And so when you tame that stuff, everything else breathes in the track. And that's something that took a long time to understand is, you got to let your low end of your guitar, check your own ego, and don't have your guitar have a huge low end, because it kills your mix, man. That's something that I struggled as a guitar player, man. Just being like, man, I want my guitar to sound super heavy and aggressive, right? But if you want that to be the case, just realize you're probably not going to have a good, tight, low end and crisp mix. So that is like the last thing that I learned with guitars when mixing. So I hope that is, one, if that raises any questions, and 2, if you didn't know that like will help you out immensely, because that's what I want to do, just help you out. You know what I mean? So I'm going to turn to the chat real quick. I use Reaper stock multiband compressor. I have issues with how to just get it right, so this should be good. All right, awesome. Hey, what's up, Vin? Guys, we're just talking about mixing here. If you have any questions, if you're brand new to tonight's stream, we're just talking about mixing. If you guys have any strategies that you would like me to touch on, any tips and tricks for me, I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you are, in fact, mixing and recording yourself, what's one plugin you can't live without? Like, let's think, metaphorically, if you had to take a plugin to your grave, what would it be? For me, I'm going to save that. I'll see if anybody wants to chime in with that. When EQing, do you filter / cut any low end in the bass, or you just leave it low end wide open? Yes. Sorry. So I think that's a good segue. We can talk about the bass. Now the bass, yes, it holds down the low end, but it's funny nowadays in like modern metal and modern rock, I feel like the bass is almost as important in the high end, in the upper register, it is in the low end and the lower frequencies. And that's kind of ironic, right? So I guess we'll start with how I do bass. So I record one track, and then I will finish the whole song, whatever. Then I'll copy and paste it and have the exact same track underneath my original. I can either use DIs, but honestly, a lot of times I just use my SansAmp bass driver DI Box V2. This thing's awesome. I absolutely love it because it gives it a nice like real sound. It's not like a straight DI, but you can manipulate it with plugins. So I love it. So I have like a relatively clean DI signal, and then I'll use a guitar sim on the duplicate track. And a lot of times what I gravitate towards is like the JST Misha Mansour signature plugin, the Tone Forge. Reason being is because I spent a lot of money on it and I have zero use for it as a guitar player. I absolutely hate that plugin. And yeah, so I like almost force myself to use it on something. So I use it on bass, and then I have it super, super quiet sitting underneath my original track, right? So then from there, on the dirty one, I cut out all of the low end at about like 200 hertz, and I cut out all the high end on that dirty track at about 2K. So it's like a super focused dirty bass sound from about like, what did I say, like 200, 250 to about like 1 to 2K. Like very generic, case by case, but that's like basically where I do all my cuts on the dirty track. And then the low end track, or the normal track, whatever you want to call it, I don't touch until we get to the bus. And then from the bus, I do all my EQing. And so I filter out all the low end from about like 60 to 70K. Or excuse me, 60 to 70 hertz, not 70K. And reason being is because, again, it's all about having a tight, crisp mix. When I was mixing back in, a year and a half ago, I would cut at about 30 hertz and then call it good. And then I would listen to my mix, and it would just be like stupid bassy and like so like, listenable, because you just had no definition in anything because the bass was so damn loud. The overall bass of the track was so damn loud, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So now with the bass itself on the bus, I cut at about like I said, 60 to 80 hertz, man. And I don't care. You can call that aggressive, but at least it keeps my low end in check, and it keeps my mix tight. I don't need a super heavy, fat low end because, I'm playing metal. It's gonna be heavy. It's gonna be aggressive. You're gonna have those low frequencies there. You don't need the super subsonic stuff, man. Like it's gonna come in whether you like it or not. I've come to find that out. Like it's gonna be there. So just like trust your instincts and just cut as aggressive as you want. So again, I cut at about like 60 hertz. That's like the lowest my bass will ever be. I don't think it ever goes below 60 hertz. I don't think I have anything in like 50 hertz range. And so then from there, I do a slight boost at about like 2K, like a very skinny, thin spike in the EQ frequency at about 2K, just to bring out the clank a little bit. But then it's funny, I do another cut at about like 4K because it gets rid of that like pick scraping sound, that really harsh, brittle stuff that I don't like. So I cut that out. So it's weird. Like I have one like right going up and then one right down, right next to each other. But the biggest thing that I do with the bass on EQing is I cut almost all of the mids out from like about like 300 hertz all the way to about like 1K. Just like all the mid range just gone, because again, the mid range is for the guitar. You know, again, just trying to fit where you're at sonically in a stereo surround sound space. The bass doesn't belong in the mid range. The guitar does. So why have it? So that's just like my overall philosophy on how I EQ my bass stuff. Back to the chat, shall we? All right. We want to hear the tennis racket. It's sitting right there, man. Funny enough, it's 70 degrees today in Philadelphia, so it's coming. It's coming. I have the song ready to go. Just be patient. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. All right, $29 for the Seafloor plugin right now over at Sweetwater. Got to get it. Hey, actually, you don't even have to go to Sweetwater. It's like, I think it's the same on Waves itself, so you don't even have to go through Sweetwater if you don't want to, bro. I got it right from Waves, and I had it within seconds. You know, it's Sweetwater Musician's Friend's nice with plugins and stuff, but like for me, it seems like there's always an extra step when you go through those things rather than buying it from the website. But hey, you know, just trying to help. That's all. How many amps do I have? Currently, I don't have one single analog amp anymore. I sold them all. I have my Axe Effects. That's about as analog as I get at the moment. I really want to get the PV Invective mini head. I really am curious to see how that thing works. I think that might be my first introduction into real amps again. So I don't know. We'll see. I was cutting the bass at 30 as well. I'll try that. Thanks, dude. Cheers from down under. Dude, right on, man. Hey, I want to go to Australia or New Zealand someday soon. Man, New Zealand, that was terrible what happened this week. That's crazy. Man. But yeah, try being a little more aggressive with your bass EQ. It can't hurt to be aggressive, you know what I mean? I can't live without the Multimedia Arc 2. It's a software that analyzes your room. It's a monitoring system. Will have a very flat response, so you can mix with a $10 monitors in a toilet. That's funny, man. Yeah, I don't have. I gotta try that. Yeah, because my monitors are pretty solid, but yeah, I don't think my room's like a toilet, but that's funny. EVH 5150 lunchbox is life. I had that thing. I had that thing in Georgia before that. I think, like, you know, my very first video was with the original EVH 15-watt lunchbox head. My Lamb of God laid to rest, and I recorded it with a $15 microphone, and it shows it because it's really bad. I think for my 2-year anniversary on YouTube, I'm going to do a reaction to that, to my old videos. So then, all right. So the last thing I'll talk about is we'll talk about bussing and like how I compress the bus, because that was the thing that like really like locked everything in with my mix. You know, people always like poo-poo and talk badly about compression and like you want to keep things dynamic, and I say the hell with that, man. Compress as much as you can get away with on your buses, not on the actual tracks and stuff, but on the actual buses. Compress as much as you think you possibly can before it starts to like sound like you have a really aggressive compressor, you know, if that makes any sense. Before it like changes the overall volume, you know what I mean? Like if you like compress really hard and you know, you can certainly like feel your, you know, your tracks going in and out, like pumping through. I think you guys, it's hard to explain, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Those that have been recording for a while. So we'll start with the guitars as always. I compress the guitars actually pretty subtly. I don't like to have a lot of gain reduction on the guitars because the guitars themselves in a metal context are already extremely compressed. You know, high gain stuff is just like that. It's just compressed guitar sound. I mean, it is literally the idea of distortion is just taking a clean signal and just giving it as much gain and just forcing as much as possible and hitting a certain, you know, hitting a wall. And so basically it's just like, it's already compressed. Like it's like that signal is already pushed to the max. That's just like what overall distortion is. So to compress it even more so on, you know, on a bus isn't really needed because it's already pretty much compressed. And then it all depends on what certain pickups you're using, like active pickups, like EMGs are very compressed as, you know, as the nature of the dynamics of that that pickup set, like 8160, 8185, they're already pretty compressed. So actually guitars are the one thing I don't compress that much. But bass is a whole different ballgame, and the bass is actually the most fun to compress for me. Now, the one plugin, remember I said I couldn't live without? I think it's a tie between Slate Digital Virtual Mix Rack, but I think I'm going to have to give it to the Joey Sturgis Tones, Joel Wanasek BG bass from the Joel Wanasek Bus Glue series. That plugin, what it does is it splits your low end and your high end, and it's awesome because you can treat those two frequency levels differently, and you compress them differently. So for the low end, I compress almost as much as possible on the plugin. And then that way, it just, no matter what note I hit, even if I kind of mess up on the bass track, that low end register will come in like clear, crisp 100% of the time. And yeah, like it's just so awesome that like that plugin, you can just like, you don't even have to worry about the high end, because what's awesome about the Joe Wanasek stuff is like he takes out all the engineering stuff for people like myself who are like amateur engineers, or like you guys who are amateur engineers. And so like he has like fixed thresholds and you know, frequency levels and all this stuff that's already built in that you don't even have to worry about. So again, with the low end, it's automatically, you know, the cutoff point for the low end is already predetermined, and therefore you just have to worry about creating. And so yeah, I just compress the hell out of my low end on my bass. And then with the high end, I don't compress it hardly at all. And I keep it pretty loud, because what that does is it allows the high end clank, like the, you know, the gent clank, if you will, whatever you want to call it. Like when you hit a string hard, it spikes through in the mix and you can hear it. But when you like mess up or like hit a note soft or whatever, it's not there. So that clank isn't like, it's not just like clank, 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 clank the whole time. It's not annoying, but like you're like boom, 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 bang, boom, 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 clank, 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 boom, 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 boom. That's a stellar bass impression. I know. Thank you. You know, save your applause. Thank you. But no super chats. But also, like, all kidding aside, like when you have the dynamics of the high end clank, it makes your bass stick out more in the mix, but it doesn't make it stick out to the point where it's like that's all you're hearing is the high end clank. It's like a weird mix, like a weird balance of like keeping your clank dynamic but still making it shine through when it needs to be there. So I love the Joel Wanasek BG Bus. That's like the plugin that I can't live without with mixing at the moment, and I love it. I love it so much. And then drums. I said this when I did a tutorial. With one of my tracks, with the Left Behind tracks, with the Left Behind project, I don't really compress MIDI drums when everything's in-house on the actual plugin. Like Superior Drummer 3, very expensive, huge investment, but I mean, it's amazing, don't get it wrong. But like, there's so much built into that plugin, I don't need to do any more to it. You know what I mean? Like, they spent thousands of hours perfecting that plugin. Why am I going to try to like outdo what they've already done? You know what I mean? They're Superior Drummer 3, they're Tune Track. You know, they know what they're doing. They're like legends in the plugin game. So I barely compress. I use the Joel Wanasek drum bus compressor, but like I barely compress and I barely bring down the overall level. I don't have hardly any gain reduction with the drums because the drums are already pretty much good to go out of the box. But I make sure I use a drum style patch that isn't compressed hardly at all, because you have to compress the overall mix. And that's something that it didn't take very long to figure this out, but I'm going to try to explain this. If you have an already compressed drum sound, like there's certain patches in Superior Drummer 3 that are already very compressed. And in layman's terms, what this means is the drums, the cymbals are so in your face and so loud. If you hear a super compressed drum track, you'll know it when you hear the cymbals, just like, and you might think like, oh, the cymbals are too loud. Yes, they're too loud, but they're too loud because 90% of the time what I've found out is because they're compressed. The overall like drum bus is compressed way too much. And for me, I don't like that sound. I like it where the kick and the snare are the ones who punch of the drum track, and you can almost barely hear the hi-hat and the crash and the ride and stuff like that, because you have to compress the overall track. Again, I use the Joey Sturgis Joel Wanasek mix plugin. I did use the Slate Digital Virtual Bus Compressor, but that's a little too high tech for my liking. Again, I'm an amateur engineer, so I like when less is more. Just, when I'm just like click of a button, okay, it sounds good. I don't really like to worry about ins and outs too much. But again, I compress as much as I can get away with before it starts to sound like it's a super crushed, compressed track. And one thing you can, if you're not sure, hey, am I compressing too much? Listen to the cymbals of your overall track. That's a good starting point that I can give some advice for. When the cymbals, like as you compress your overall stereo out, master fader, whatever you want to call it, if the cymbals and the crash start to really like get in your face, I think you're compressing too much. That's like the telltale sign. Something that I learned, over time is like, you think you certainly want to compress everything, keep everything in check. But when you're compressing so much, when you're increasing the threshold, and your cymbals are starting to like overcrowd your overall mix, back it down a little bit, because chances are you're probably compressing too much, and now everything's just pushing through. And again, the telltale sign is the cymbals. So that's a little piece of advice. I'm gonna go to the chat real quick. SSL Suite plugins got very good compressors and EQ. Yeah, I've heard about them, but I'm a creature of habit. I'm like stuck in my ways for the moment, and like SSL plug, like Slate Digital plugins, like that's like a boring demo. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna reach out or even purchase and demo like audio engineering plugins when I'm stuck in my ways. Creature of habit. Cowbell is the only thing that would never be too loud in track. That's the smartest thing you've said all day, sir, and probably your entire life. Have you seen the JST Billy Decker bus plugins? They seem to be pretty basic to use. I have. It's interesting. Joey Sturgis, man. Does anybody not know what happened with me and Joey this summer? Let me know in the couple of you that are watching. If you don't know what happened with Joey Sturgis and I have a history. I don't know if you know this, but just leave it down below if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you do, I'll move on. But yeah, I did see the Billy Decker stuff. But again, I have the Joel Wanasek stuff. It's made for metal. I don't really want to use the country stuff. I'm not gonna play country or classic rock. Isn't the Joel Wanasek BG stuff more like limiters than compressors? No, it's a bus series. No, it's not really a limiter. It's a compressor. I guess it's like a compressor limiter. Yeah, kind of, because you do set the limit, but you compress. So it's a little bit of both. It's a compress. Almost all compressors have a limiting function, but what it does is what makes his series different than your average plugin or your average compressor limiter series is he has 2 buttons on all of his plugins. Pretty much, like he has like little nuances and little tricks in all his other like the mix is a little bit different than the guitars, is a little bit different than the bass, but the functionality and the premise of all those plugins in that plugin series is the same. You have your compression fader and you have your limiting fader, like your overall volume fader, if you will. And what makes his series different than everybody else's is he doesn't allow you to focus on the ins and outs of the plugin. He just like, you're supposed to trust in his beliefs and his mentality. Like, all right, this is the attack and the release of the bass bus glue plugin, and you just got to run with it. And I like that because it allows me to not focus on the audio engineering side of things and just focusing more on getting products and projects done. So that's what makes his different. John Post, what's up, man? What kind of mixing techniques could you help me making a song go from demo quality to sounding nice and full? I'm not sure if you've already talked about this, but I missed a lot. Stay metal. Hey, Hey, you're about an hour late, but hey, better late than never, John. Good to see you. I have two ideas for you. Let me take a sip real quick. So going from demo to professional, I mean, I'm assuming you think my stuff's pretty good if you're asking me, and I really do sincerely appreciate that. That's rather humbling that you're asking me. So thank you. Yeah, so I kind of just talked about individual tracks and individual instruments and how to make them sound professional, if you will. My advice requires you to buy stuff, and I don't know what your budget is, and I don't mean to like tell you what to do, but I think if you really want to step up your audio game, I really suggest you invest in some certain products, excuse me. For a guitar player, I highly recommend you investing in DI boxes. I think the plugin world is taking over. I said this in my last stream, my gear stream. I really think the plugin game is taking over like the analog tube amp game. And so plugins are becoming a huge thing, and DI boxes are a great way to get a clean signal for your DI for a plugin, right? I mean, yes, you can use the instrument input on an interface, but these are like top notch and give the cleanest. Now, these aren't exactly the best DI boxes in the world, but the DI box itself, the overall premise of a DI box is to give you a crisp, clean signal. So I would highly recommend investing in a DI box for a guitar sound or a bass sound. And then I would recommend you investing in some certain plugins. Now, assuming you have a guitar tone or a bass tone that you'd like to use and you just want to like learn how to mix it, I would recommend you investing in one of two options. Either I recommend you investing in like getting a audio engineer bundle plugin stuff. Like I know JST has one, an audio engineer bundle. I know, Slate Digital. I mean, they're like the biggest in the game right now. They're also the most expensive. But if you know how to use that stuff really will take your stuff up to next level. Or even like some Wave stuff is good. But honestly, I would go either Slate Digital or Joey Sturgis Tones. I think their audio engineering plugins are top notch. From their Bus Glue series with JST's Bus Glue series. And, they have the gain reduction if you want to do vocals, and they have a limiter, like the clip. I think it's called JST Clip. Yeah, everything but like a couple of their guitar plugins I'm not a fan of, but like Menace is great, Guilty Pleasure is great, Ben Bruce is great. Ben Bruce is my favorite. Joey Sturgis Tones and Slate Digital I think would be a great spot to invest. But another thing you could recommend, like if you want to like put out like an awesome album, if you're album ready, Lander. I used Lander in the very beginning when I did my first EP last year. My mixing wasn't that good, but Lander made my not so good mixing sound great. You have to pay for it per song, but Lander does great stuff. I have experience with Lander. And I guess my last thing to invest in would be, assuming you have a good guitar, just Ozone 8 is a great mastering plugin, and it does all the legwork for you. I don't want to spend up too much time talking about, mastering plugins, but it does the work for you. I'll just say that. So Ozone 8 from Isotope. Check it out. Let's see. What kind of AJ Moore, I heard through some buddies. Much love, Ray. Love your guitar playing. However, them vocals on Slipknot covers in general are fucking killer. Looking forward to hear some more of them. I know I'm off topic, but I got here late anyway. Thanks, man. Couple things there. Yeah, JST flagged my video, my Misha Mansour video, because I spent so much money on that plugin, and I hate it. And I've been criticized for talking about this too much, but when one of the biggest audio engineers in the entire game accuses you of stealing, I'm going to talk about it. It happened to me, and I can't shy away from it. It's a part of my YouTube and my music career, so I'm not going to like shy away from it. Some people are like, I'll move on, stop talking about it. yeah, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like that shit sucked. I almost got in legal trouble because I was accused of stealing from the JST website. He made an apology video, and yeah, people say, man, just let it go. Stop talking about it. Don't let it define you. But like I said, man, it's like if Bob Rock or like Rick Rubin, you know, accused somebody of stealing and they just made up a joke or made up a lie and like made that person out to be a joke, like, you know, they're not going to shy away from it. So I don't give a fuck, man. Fuck that. Like I'm a grown ass man. I'm not going to take that shit. It makes me mad thinking about it, but you know, water under the bridge, we've gotten over it, but I'm still not going to shy away from it. It's a part of my history, but I still talk great about JST. I told everybody, I don't hate JST at all. You know, I mean, I love 90% of their plugins. It's just like the Misha plugin and like Jason Richardson like aren't my favorite, and that's it. Like I hate the Misha. Jason Richardson's like hit or miss, and everything else is solid to great. So if you guys didn't hear about it, that's what happened. Yeah, whatever. So Slipknot vocals, real quick. I'll get off everybody. All right, since we're getting off topic in the chat, and myself, I want to talk about it. Yeah, I keep saying I had this collab, man, and unfortunately, I haven't heard back from the drummer, and it's disheartening. It was a Slipknot song, and he's like ghosting me. Zachy, the drummer from Alex's band, is like not answering my DMs on Instagram anymore, and it's like, really, dude? Like what the fuck? But I have an awesome project lined up. I just think I got to get a new drummer for a Slipknot song, and yeah, thanks, man. I'm glad you like my vocals. I appreciate that. I have no tips on how to scream other than just to do it. Like, try it. Like, there's no technique. It's just like, just go for it. And yeah. So, but thank you, man. I appreciate that. I'll never get those JST amp sims to work well with me, so I just use a real amp and a guitar rig. Hell yeah, AJ. Like, I've always wanted people, like, there's a couple of you watching right now. Has anybody, like, used the Misha plugin and loved it? Like, because, like, when I released that video, I released it the day that it came out. And it's, like, my most hated video on this channel. And people were, like, hating on it before they even tried it. And there was a dozen people or so that like later on apologized, like, and said, dude, you're right. It's trash. It's bad. I don't like it, you know. But in the moment, like in the first 24 hours, people like just like giving me death threats and being like, dude, you're the biggest piece of shit on the internet. But yeah, I didn't like it was okay, but for $150, man, get out of here, dude. Yeah, sounds like shit. You liked it, but it's too expensive. Yeah, like, okay. So if you like, yeah, gets me rowdy thinking about it. All right. So if there's any questions for me in general, either in general or about mixing, I'd be happy to answer you guys' questions. For me, you know, there's one guitar in the mail coming up that I'm excited about. I'm very excited. I'm fortunate enough to be constantly getting guitars and doing demos. So that's coming up. I'm excited about that. I'm trying to get this damn project, this damn collab, going, you know, with some of these folks that I've had on the collabs and on this channel, and I'm trying to get it going. But yeah, man, Zachy, I don't know what his deal is, man. You know, I'm not trying to put him on blast, but he stopped answering me. So I don't know what his deal is, man. Maybe he just doesn't like me. I don't know. But yeah, I got a couple collabs working, you know, in the works, and I'm trying to get Nikki Tedesco on this series, on this video, on the live stream this time next week. I'm gonna see if I can get it to work out. I just got to figure out how to connect with somebody and make it live on YouTube. So that's what I got going on. So if there's no other questions, guys, you know, you guys can feel free to DM me at Stay Middle Ray. But apart from that, guys, I think we're about done. So if anybody has any questions, you know, leave them down below. But other than that, that's all I got, man. You know, I gave a crash course in mixing. You know, it took about an hour. It's about as long as I wanted it to go. So got to go try this 60th cut for the bass. Thanks again. Yeah, hey, I'm glad that helped, man. You know, 60 hertz. All right, boys. So I supported you when that happened. Thanks, man. Yeah, you're talking about the JST stuff. I appreciate that, dude. Yeah, water under the bridge, man. That was last year, but it just gets me pissed when I think about it. You know what I mean? All right, boys. The Tone King. All right, I can't leave now. What's up, man? How you doing, dude? Honestly, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the Tone King, go subscribe now. That dude has like his room, his stuff is like absolutely, a dream of anybody. He's got like a wall of amps, and it's very good to see you, man. No, you're not late. We can always hang around for you, man. Hey, I really appreciate it, dude. We're just talking about mixing. If you'd like to give some 2 cents on how you mix your stuff, or if any advice, it's always good to see you too, man. I've been a big fan for years, and it's a bit humbling that you came in and stopped by and wanted to say hello. So, thank you, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the Tone King, you'll be very happy that I sent you over there if you haven't yet. But chances are, he's the industry standard on YouTube. Guys, check his channel if you haven't yet. But mixing is an art. You're probably better at me. I don't know, man. Art's relative. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if anybody's better. Hey, pleasure's all mine, man. Tone King, yeah. Oh man, I'm blushing a little bit. You know what I mean? When a celebrity such as the Tone King comes in. But then I guess that's just a reflection on who I am. The Tone King comes and hangs out on my live stream. I'm just kidding. I'm just being an idiot. If what state do I live in? I live in Pennsylvania. I live in Philadelphia, more specifically. But sir, if you could please answer this question in the chat. I don't mean to take up any more of your time. If you could take one piece of gear to your grave, guitar, bass, or not really bass, but guitar, amp, head, cab, whatever you want to call it, what would you take to the grave? Dude, we're close. Freehold, New Jersey, home of Bruce Springsteen. All right, right on. My father was as a Jersey boy, so I know all about Freehold. Very cool. I mean, would you be down to collab one day? That'd be a dream come true. If you want to link up, that'd be awesome. But yeah, with one piece of gear, what would you take? I would love to know. All right, I will shoot you a DM on Instagram after this. That'd be amazing. I'd really, really appreciate that. Thank you in advance for even considering that. Thank you so much. First guitar. What was your first guitar? Last question. Greetings from Chile. Right on, man. Greetings from the United States. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. All right. What are the pickups you want to swap for your Les Paul, and for what? No Name Flying V. Funny you mentioned that, because I have a spoiler alert. I have the new Flying V coming in from Gibson, the 2019, the all natural one. So I'm down to check that out. It's funny you mentioned that. It's coming in the mail as we speak today. Right on, man. But hey, thank you for your time, and I'll be sure to send you a DM on Instagram, if that's okay with you, if you don't mind. But yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Pickups you want to swap in for your Les Paul, and what for? I really think I want to go passive pickups. I don't think I want to go active in a 92 Les Paul. Email the Tone King. All right, right on, sir. Thank you. I'll be sure to email you immediately after this. Thank you so much. I was thinking of getting some bare knuckle aftermaths. I think that'd look cool, but I know I'm contradicting myself. Maybe some Fishman Classics. They're active, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what I would put in yet. I'm still debating on it. But all right, boys. I've been talking for about an hour. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go spend the rest of my Friday night with my fiance, and we'll probably watch a scary movie, all right? But guys, thank you so much for watching to the end of this stream, and I will see you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Later, boys.